from Team PCB. I mean, Paige has only been there, what, 2 years, a little over 2 years in WWE, and she hasn't been given as many opportunities as what someone like Charlotte's been given early on in her career, and that is a miscarriage of justice, in my opinion, if I can steal that quote from Gorilla Monsoon, which was made infamous from him, because I think truer words have never been spoken. But I think Paige really put it into perspective for us when she said that Charlotte was nothing more than baby Flair. I mean, when you have people like Becky Lynch and Paige who are working so hard to redefine the Divas division for what it's supposed to represent, and people like Charlotte stealing the spotlight all the time, stealing the show as a 3-4-time Divas champion, whatever the case may be, whatever number Charlotte will eventually get to, which I hope isn't 14 or 15, getting closer than ever before to breaking the record of Ric Flair. Maybe she'll be as crazy enough to say she's going to be the one to break the record of Ric Flair and win about 14, 15 titles as Divas champion. That could be the case too, and God only knows what could happen with the influence of Ric Flair having on her daughter and just, on his daughter and just the friendship that he has with Triple H and Stephanie. That could happen in the coming years, and I hope we don't see that from Charlotte, because I think more opportunities need to be handed to the Sasha Bankses and the Paiges and the Becky Lynches of the world who are competing for the number one contendership to Charlotte's championship. Taking a look at what we're faced with here for WrestleMania, we could be looking at Sasha Banks versus Charlotte, either that or Sasha Banks versus Charlotte and Becky Lynch thrown in there as the third wheel, which I hope we do see. But I would like to see a one-on-one match between Charlotte and Sasha Banks, because we have never seen it before. We've seen something like that done on NXT, but we've never seen a Divas Championship match between Charlotte and Sasha Banks, which could go a long way in redefining the division. This is why I say that Charlotte does not need to be priding herself off the legacy of Ric Flair, because she is a very talented wrestler. She's multi-talented. She's very talented in being a wrestler and entertainer. She's a great promo cutter, and she's just fun to watch. She could be one of those unpredictable divas in the way of an AJ Lee, and not so much like a Trish Stratus that you know what's going to happen before anything happens in relation to Trish Stratus. We've seen Trish Stratus be given so many opportunities along with Ric Flair, and I don't want to see Charlotte's career really be looked back on as the mirror image of the career of Ric Flair, winning 14, 15 Divas Championships, which again I hope we don't see, because that really deprives divas of Sasha Banks and Paige and Becky Lynch of opportunities of winning 4 or 5 Divas Championships, because in my opinion, the greatest diva in WWE history could be someone like Sasha Banks if ever given that opportunity. Yeah, she's a far cry from a Trish Stratus or a Lita, and it's going to be a long time before we see anyone, let alone Sasha Banks, get to the level of a Trish Stratus, even a Charlotte. But the thing is, Sasha Banks is very talented, and that's why I'm really proud in WWE finally pushing Sasha Banks and realizing the potential that goes with her character, because really the boss is really having an effect, and a profound effect, not only on the entire division, but all the WWE fans with the reactions that Sasha Banks is getting. It's obviously really apparent that we want Sasha Chance are taking over during Divas matches that don't even have Sasha Banks involved in them. So the thing is, when you're hearing we want Sasha Chance during matches between, Paige and Becky Lynch, that really, raises the issue of Sasha Banks' involvement, whether or not she should be involved even more in these storylines, which is why I'm really looking forward to matches between Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch to determine the number one contender for Charlotte's championship. Whether or not it's a one-on-one match or a triple threat match, it will go a long way in redefining what this division is really all about. But as long as you have someone like Charlotte being the mirror image of her father, what this becomes a case of is someone depriving someone like a Sasha Banks or a Becky Lynch of that opportunity to be Divas champion, which we need to be seeing more of in WWE, because I think that if Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch are being deprived constantly of being Divas champion, or even being given 1 or 2 opportunities at that championship, the purpose of this Divas Revolution, if Stephanie likes this or not, I really don't care. The thing is, this purpose of the Divas Revolution is just being defeated, and there's really no point of ever having even promoted it. And with how Stephanie endorsed the Divas Revolution, you came away from her endorsement of the Divas Revolution saying, this has something very promising to look forward to for the Divas division, and it really goes a long way in changing the Divas division. But at the end of the day, after months of hearing Stephanie endorse people like Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte, has the Divas Revolution really had a purpose in WWE, and did it do what they said the Divas Revolution was going to do? When you have about 30 divas on the roster, more divas than you ever have seen before come through the doors of WWE with a real great international feel, American divas, Russian divas, English divas, so many divas bringing a feel out of this division, more than we've ever seen before. but we're seeing the same 3 or 4 divas being champion and the same 3 or 4 challengers being given opportunities over people who should be being given opportunities, who are having nothing done with their characters, only being undermined and undershadowed. And that's really what pisses me off when we see Charlotte coming out wooing all the time, doing the Ric Flair chops, the Ric Flair entrance music, the ring attire, the moves. It's ridiculous. I hate it. And I think more needs to be happening in this division. We've seen this happen, often reiterated ever since last September. What has it been, 4 or 5 months now of Charlotte being Divas Champion? Technically, she's a 2-time Divas Champion because she previously defeated Nikki Bella for that championship, although it's not in the record books, and Nikki Bella went on to establish herself as the longest reigning Divas Champion in history, and then Charlotte defeats her the following Sunday at the Night of Champions pay-per-view, and it's been that way ever since, with the absence of Nikki Bella becoming more apparent as the weeks go by, which leads me to believe that Nikki Bella could be the one returning to take that title away from Charlotte off of her neck surgery after that match we saw between Brie Bella and Charlotte at Fastlane this past Sunday, which, by the way, guys, I got to put over as one of the best Divas matches I have seen on a pay-per-view in the way of distribution in a really long time. The exchange between Brie Bella and Charlotte was phenomenal. They went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth before Charlotte came away retaining her championship. Again, Ric Flair became involved in that match. He didn't need to become involved in that match, and that's why I say, take Ric Flair away from Charlotte and see how long Charlotte can survive and last in WWE. See how long she can thrive is the word I'm searching for, because without Ric Flair, what does really Charlotte have left? She really has nothing left because she has to be more creative with her character, because she's really just being way too original, as I said and played on the fact of a couple of weeks ago for a YouTube video that I had posted on my YouTube channel of how Charlotte was just way more original, playing off the idea of how original she was from her father, because we see too many wrestlers coming into the business, both wrestlers and divas, who are just so thriving off of their family's legacies and just too original. And I think more people need to break away from their family's legacies and leave these legacies untouched, because the $1 Million Man's legacy, the legacy of Dusty Rhodes, these are legacies that will never ever be surpassed. And these are legacies that wrestling fans are refusing to forget about. And that's why so many wrestling fans feel insulted, because they feel their intelligence is being insulted. Their knowledge of people like Dusty Rhodes and the $1 Million Man are just being insulted because they've watched them for years, especially fans who go back to the territorial years of professional wrestling. I can only imagine what you're thinking about. I just mentioned about some of the greatest wrestlers of all time, Dusty and Ted, and they're having their legacies really besmirched because you have people dressed up as people like Goldust characters in the way of Cody Rhodes, who doesn't need to have this done with his character. You're either, disgracing your family's legacy or having it ruined by creative. And that's really what it's coming down to. You are not really using these second and third generation wrestlers to their fullest potential. And that's why so much controversy is being derived from everything that's happening. And that's why I think way more needs to be expected from someone like Charlotte in the coming years, who I don't hope we see having 14, 15 Divas title reigns by the time it's all said and done. Winning the championship, losing the championship, and just, winning it back within 3 to 4 weeks. She would really be the John Cena, in my opinion, of the Divas division if she was losing the championship as many times as her father lost the championship. Because keep in mind, if Ric Flair was a 16-time champion, he had to lose that title 16 times, no matter if it was a few weeks apart or a few months apart. He had to lose the title. And Charlotte, to me, would be just the John Cena of the Divas division. Nikki Bella being Divas champion for over 300 days, put me in mind of a John Cena-type title reign, which obviously Cena had a lot of influence on. But the thing is, we'd be seeing Charlotte, winning the championship, losing the championship, winning it back from, say, someone like Becky Lynch or Paige within 3 weeks, losing the championship, winning it back within 3 weeks. And who really wants to see that sort of thing? I think I speak for every wrestling fan and someone who was ever a fan or supporter of the Divas division when I say, we don't want to be seeing that. We want to get to a reprieve where we see different divas coming into the business, and we want to see more of opportunities being handed to that, more so than someone like Charlotte, who has been given way too many opportunities over the last few months. We need a wave of change moving smoothly over the Divas division, and I think I can get away with having said that. In the way of a wave of change, you think about divas like Alexis Bliss on NXT, who have been given opportunities at that NXT Women's Championship, feuding with the likes of Bayley on NXT. Alexis Bliss is someone who puts me in mind of a female Rey Mysterio, and I know I say that a lot on this show. I've written about Alexis Bliss. I've talked about her on my show a lot. I haven't posted a video blog specifically for Alexis Bliss yet, but I will. I'll be posting more specific video blogs on Alexis Bliss. I did post minimal video blogs on Alexis Bliss, but they didn't have very much detail in them because I didn't really know that much information on the character of Alexis Bliss because I wasn't following her very closely, but I will be following her more as time goes on, and I'm really excited to see what the future has in store for these upcoming divas. But in order to give these divas these opportunities that I've been talking about, we really need to have not so much emphasis happening for Charlotte, and we really need to take her out of this title picture because she's just way too much like her father, and all this doesn't need to be happening. And I think I can get away with saying that without any criticism being thrown my way, because I think a lot more wrestling fans will find time in agreeing with me than disagreeing with me on how I feel about Charlotte and how things have been going for this Divas Revolution. So I just wanted to make more people aware of what's happening here because it's obviously really apparent the same thing is kind of happening that was happening 4 or 5 years ago when we had the same champion, the same challengers all the time. And I think really what's obviously really apparent more so than anything is the fact that the purpose of this Divas Revolution is being defeated ever before its purpose has been recognized by wrestling fans. And I think really what it comes down to is we want to be seeing more of the Sasha Bankses and the Becky Lynches ever before we see someone like Charlotte, who ironically enough a couple of months ago I was a really big fan of, and I talked about her promise from my written column. I talked about her on this video blog before I ever talked about someone like Alexis Bliss. And I have a lot of regret for doing so because she becomes more like her father all the time, and she's really depriving people like Alexis Bliss and Becky Lynch of opportunities that should be being given and thrown their way. And I think this purpose of the Divas Revolution has been defeated for far long enough. I'm your host, Jonathan Clarke, and I will talk to you again next week. Again, you can tweet me on Twitter at JonathanClarke1 with your opinion if you have one, and you can get in touch with me on my Facebook page at HEW Entertainment, and I will talk to you again really soon next week. Like what you hear? Tell us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.